What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the BamaInsider YouTube channel. We're going to talk some recruiting tonight. It's time for recruiting with Andrew Bone. We do this every Tuesday, but we're switching over to Wednesday now for the stretch run. A week from today is the early signing period and a lot going on in the world of recruiting. So before we really get into anything recruiting, let me remind you guys to like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and punch the bell. That way you'll know when we're live. A thumbs up says Roll Tide. Super chats are appreciated. Elizabeth last week, man, I can't even tell you how much we appreciate the super chats. But comment section, hey, you guys keep it coming in there. And let me bring him on. Here he is, the star of the Andrew Bone Show. Andrew Bone, what's up?
Hey, Mick, how you doing?
Good. Look, it's crazy to think that we're in this spot right now. And I guess one thing that I should say before we even get into it is condolences to Mike Leach, his family. You know, it's been just such a shock to lose a football coach in the SEC, but also someone that brought so much just joy to everything he did. I thought Tennessee made a mistake when they didn't hire him and they hired Jeremy Pruitt instead. He was kind of in the mix for that job. I remember them talking about it. He went to Mississippi State. You know, look, he won the Egg Bowl, last game he's ever coached. And it's just sat heavy on my heart, and I know a lot of you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, he's one of a kind. I don't know if there's ever going to be anybody like him in the college football world. I mean, he was, very entertaining. You always listen anytime he stepped up to the microphone, because you just never know. I never knew what he was going to say, and it was always entertaining. And it was like, he always gave some unbelievable advice. When you see the news that he'd been rushed to the hospital, you're thinking, okay, well. Hope everything's okay, but then you start reading the news on different boards about how things weren't looking good, that he probably wasn't going to make it. You're just kind of in basically in a state of shock. And we had heard some rumors prior to the end of the season there was a chance that he might step down. Now, being on the Alabama side of things, we weren't sure what those rumors were all about. Maybe Mississippi State people knew that there was potentially some health issues, but I didn't know that. I didn't know anything until Sunday that there was ever anything potentially wrong. And it's tough. I mean, college football and the world lost a great person. So condolences definitely to his family, friends, coaches that he's worked with, colleagues, and the entire college football world, especially Mississippi State.
Yep. I'll be like I would anyway. I'll be pulling for Mississippi State in their bowl game this year, and that looks like they might wear a pirate type helmet, in his honor. That would be cool. I hope that happens. But all right, Bone. Well, let's talk recruiting right off the gate. There was a big announcement earlier today, and it came down to Alabama and Tennessee. And Tennessee ended up with the player. What can you tell us about Carter not coming to Alabama?
Yeah, Arion Carter announces his commitment to Tennessee over Alabama. Obviously it's a big win for Tennessee. Get the one of the best in-state recruits, but obviously a one of the top inside linebackers in the country, and it's probably one of those recruitments that stings a little bit for Alabama, just because they were considered the heavy favorite, really throughout his entire recruitment, which his recruitment didn't start until the fall. It's not like his recruitment started back in the spring. The schools really started noticing him during his senior season, including Alabama. He visited Alabama 3 times during the season, then took his official to Alabama this past weekend. So, all signs pointed towards Alabama. And I don't even think, maybe he took a visit to Knoxville this season. I know he was scheduled to take a fall visit to Knoxville. Didn't make it to a couple of those games, but then took his official visit with the Vols 2 weekends ago. I think there was a little bit of confidence coming out of Knoxville after that trip, but everybody kind of knew that Nick Saban was going in home, the next week. Alabama was going to get the final official visit, and things, should push back, at least give Alabama some more momentum with Carter after the weekend. But that's kind of what we were hearing. I mean, even after the official visit weekend, we heard that things went really well. Alabama made sure that he felt like a top priority. It wasn't like Tennessee made him a top priority and Alabama didn't. Alabama considered him, an elite player, and certainly wanted him to be a part of its recruiting class. But the way recruiting is these days, it's not all said and done until these guys announce their decisions or sign their letter of intent. So good win there for Tennessee. Alabama is going to continue to look for another linebacker or two in this class. Obviously, they've got a great recruiting class, top JUCO linebacker in the country in Justin Jefferson, Yanze Pierre, who's more of an outside linebacker. They added Keon Keeley earlier this week, which was obviously a huge commitment for them. But still trying to look for maybe some inside guys, or maybe somebody that can move around outside to inside or inside to outside. And Quay Rousseau, 5-star linebacker out of Carver High School, Montgomery, remains a priority target for the Crimson Tide. He's one of those type of linebackers that you can move around, that is willing to play inside or outside in a system. And I think he's a great pass rusher, but I also think that he can play that inside. He's a great sideline to sideline player, very violent, and you see him there, the number 1 ranked linebacker in the country according to On3 Sports. So I think Alabama is going to have a really good chance to get Quay next week. Centurion Perkins still a guy that Alabama would love to try to snatch away from Ole Miss. Now, he did come out and say that that he was sticking with the Rebels, 1,000% committed. But we know Alabama is still recruiting him. That's not going to change. He might he might stick with Ole Miss, which, in my opinion, as of right now, I feel pretty good about him doing that. But we're also going to wait and see what he potentially does next week. Is he going to go ahead and sign his letter of intent, or does he potentially wait until February? There's been some talk over the course of the last month or so that he was going to wait until February to sign. Now, if that's the case, then Alabama, in my opinion, will have a chance with Perkins. But if he decides to go ahead and sign next week, I think Ole Miss should be in pretty good shape. But like I said, they get Quay Rousseau on board. I think the linebacker class is outstanding. They're still recruiting Perkins, but with Carter, I think that's definitely one that they were surprised with at the very end, because it all seemed like Alabama. Tennessee kind of seemed on the outside heading into to the final couple of weeks of his recruitment. But then the visit with Heupel on, I guess it was Monday. I think he had a long conversation with Coach Heupel on Sunday evening after his return from Tuscaloosa. Coach Heupel spent most of the day not Knoxville, in Smyrna, visiting with Arion Carter, going to his high school, going to his school, which Nick Saban did. Nick Saban did that the previous week. Pete Golding's been up there. Eric Wolford, his position coach, or not position coach, his area recruiter, had also been up there. So it wasn't from lack of trying. So he just ends up going to Tennessee. But in the end, I do think at the linebacker position, Alabama is going to be okay. But they're going to have to close, at least with Quay Rousseau and potentially one more. But as of right now, I think Rousseau's kind of the best bet as far as closing out this class.
Guys, don't forget that if you want the latest on recruiting, you need to be part of BamaInsider.com. Now that we're part of On3, changing the face of team coverage, and things are just getting started here. I mean, we're giving you an option right now to join for $10, an entire year for $10, not a month, but for the entire year. Maybe you just want to try it out, $1 for 4 months, but you're going to want this coverage, because we're going to dip into a little bit of this stuff tonight. It's 24/7 on there. Anytime something's going on, Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings, the entire On3 crew, which is really the best of the best in the industry, are pounding the coverage out there. So make sure that you give it a try, check it out, especially with National Signing Day, at least the early signing period coming up a week from today. And that's BamaInsider.com. All right, Bone, let's talk official visitors to Tuscaloosa since last week.
Yeah, Alabama had some big visitors on campus this past weekend. Quay Rousseau, James Smith, top 2 recruits in the state of Alabama. Top of uncommitted recruits in the state of Alabama as well. So, these are priority targets for the Crimson Tide. They have been for a very long time, almost 2 years. And, this is a big, important week for them. Hugh Freeze is doing an in-home visit here today with the 2. Then Nick Saban will have his in-home visit with both of them on Thursday. Alabama, certainly is, in a good position with these 2 guys as it stands right now. But, we know these next 7 days are going to be extremely tight. They're going to have a lot of conversations. They're going to have, a lot of coaches, making sure that they feel like top priorities at their program, whether that's Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, Florida. We know that Georgia, has done really well on the defensive side of the ball the last couple of years, and that's something that they're really trying to sell to them. Auburn, new coaching staff, but they've been down there several times throughout the season. They like the atmosphere, they like the environment, they like the campus down there. Big reason for their interest in Auburn, is because of the campus, the environment. They really have enjoyed going to a lot of games down there throughout the season. But one of the biggest drawbacks right now is not having a relationship with Hugh Freeze. They've talked to him on the phone. They've never met him before. So Wednesday is the day that they were going to have their first meeting with Hugh Freeze and kind of get a feel for him. Now, they know Coach Saban. They know the coaching staff at Alabama. They've been down there. They're comfortable. They've been recruited by those guys for a very long time. They know people on the Alabama football team. They know people on Auburn's football team as well. So it's going to be interesting, kind of see how it all plays out with those 2 guys down this home stretch. Florida's certainly still in it. Everybody kind of forgets about them. Everybody kind of has just assumed that it's an Alabama-Auburn battle and, maybe Georgia. But Florida's done a really good job recruiting those 2 guys as well. Billy Napier has a great relationship with them. There's some guys on the team down there that they're familiar with. The outside linebackers coach at Florida is, really close with Quay Rousseau. So they've done a really good job recruiting him. In the end, I do think it comes down to the in-state school. So a lot of it is going to come down to how comfortable are they around Hugh Freeze and are they able to develop a quick relationship with him? Are they potentially going to go back to Auburn for an unofficial visit or maybe even an official visit? They can go back to Auburn for an official visit if they decided to choose so. I don't think that's in the cards right now, but you never know if something may pop up over the next couple days. So that's something that we're going to be watching closely. But I think the weekend in T-Town went really good. One of the surprising things about their visit to Alabama was for Quay Rousseau. It was his mom's first trip to Alabama. For James Smith, it was his father's first trip to Alabama. And these guys have been to Tuscaloosa several times, but their parents just, haven't really gotten involved as far as the visit schedule. They didn't go on any of the officials. They didn't really take any trips for game days. They wanted to be a part when it, be a part of the process when it really mattered. When these official visits started taking place, then the in-home visits started. They wanted those guys to enjoy their recruitment, but now it's getting a little bit more serious. So, the parents are starting to get pretty involved there. So I think it was a great weekend for their family as well. Got a lot of questions answered. Desmond Ricks, 5-star cornerback out of IMG Academy, also made a trip to Tuscaloosa. It was his 3rd visit in the last, last 6 months to Alabama. I think Alabama really has, made a move there. You look at the recruiting prediction machine right now; it's heavily favored LSU. I would not be surprised if Alabama and Florida potentially could be at the top. He does have an official visit to LSU this weekend, so that's going to be really important. The Tigers have been trending, almost every time he's taken a visit down there, but Florida and Alabama have really come on strong with him over the last couple weekends, back-to-back official visits. But Alabama still really needs another cornerback in this class. They would love for it to be Ricks. They really like Damari Brown, also out of South Florida. But Ricks had a great trip to Alabama. He's keeping things pretty tight-lipped all the way until his announcement on December the 22nd. But I definitely think that Alabama has really made a strong move with him. So we'll see how his official visit to LSU goes this weekend, then kind of have a better feel early next week as to which school is in the lead for Desmond Ricks.
Awesome. Hanging out with Andrew Bone. And I want to remind you guys that up-to-the-date recruiting information is available, BamaInsider.com. Right now, $10 gets you an entire year, so you'll get all the coverage, the nuggets, the insider talk, and leading up to signing day, which is a week from today, which is really incredible that it's here again. Alabama, the number one class, Bone. Ohio State and Georgia kind of in that same area, but Bama's number one. Do you think they'll end up being number one when it's all said and done?
I think so. They've been number one for a long time. I don't see it changing. There's some things that can happen over the course of the next week that, really can solidify that number one ranking, especially with Quay Rousseau and James Smith. I think, you look at some of their key targets that are still out there. Defensive line wise, I really don't know if they're going to add another defensive lineman outside of James Smith. I think that's their best bet is James Smith. So they really need to, focus in and try to close him over the course of the next week. Linebacker wise, Quay Rousseau, obviously a big target, but getting Keon Keeley on board on Monday, big get there for Alabama to try to hang on to that number one recruiting class. Do they potentially add someone else like a Desmond Ricks or a Damari Brown? I definitely think that that's still a strong possibility. I'd be surprised if they don't add one of those two. As much as they really want a cornerback in this class, those are two guys that seem to be trending. I don't want to say trending, but out of all the other defensive backs that they're recruiting that they've been showing interest in, the best chance is probably with those two guys at this point. I'm not ready to predict that it's going to be Desmond Ricks. I'm not ready to predict it's going to be Damari Brown just yet. I want to, kind of wait until a couple more of these in-home visits. Saban's got a big in-home visit today on Wednesday here with Damari Brown. So kind of see how that visit goes with him. I think, we might be close to putting in an official prediction for him. But Desmond Ricks also very high on Alabama. So could go either way. It almost kind of reminds me a few years ago, there was two guys out of South Florida. One was by the name of Pat Surtain, and the other one was Tyson Campbell. And we felt the whole time, everybody felt like Tyson Campbell was going to Alabama and Surtain was going to LSU. And the only thing I would say the entire time was Alabama's going to get one of the two. I don't know which one, but they're going to get one of the two. I think it was probably signing day or the day before signing day where we were pretty confident that it was, everybody leading up to that week, it was going to be Tyson Campbell, but then there was a lot of Georgia talk about him and everybody was like, oh, Alabama's going to miss out on both of these kids. There's just no way, they're going to get either one of them because Surtain's definitely going to LSU and Tyson Campbell's now going to Georgia. I kept saying, Alabama's going to get one of the two. Trust me, they're going to get one of the two. And that's kind of how I feel with these two guys. I think Alabama's going to get one of the two. We just got to kind of wait and see which one it's going to be. But I think as we kind of get through these next couple days, and especially once we get to maybe Monday or Tuesday, especially with Desmond Ricks, let him get through his official visit to LSU this weekend. Then we might have a better feeling as to which school he's leaning to, because LSU could easily, get back into the driver's seat with him this week. And you just never know what's going to change and how quickly it can change on the recruiting front, just kind of like we saw with Arion Carter this week. All Alabama and then bam, all Tennessee. So that's something that can quickly change in a heartbeat, and something we'll be watching really closely. So that's why people need to pay attention to BamaInsider.com and stay on the message board, because we were updating that in real time. We were telling everybody, hey, definitely feel like Arion Carter's going to Tennessee. But at the same time, Alabama was working. We were keeping everybody, up to speed as to what was going on, the meetings, the calls. Coach Saban was, still working the phone this morning with Arion. So there was definitely, there was definitely a lot of recruiting scoop on Bama Insider this morning. There's going to be a ton throughout the next week. So we're going to be watching, a lot of different guys. And there's still some flip targets who are out there, including, a pretty big offensive lineman in Iowa that Alabama would love to add. They visited Caden Proctor a couple times over the last few weeks. Luke Haas, a tight end out of Oklahoma, who has welcomed Nick Saban in his home last week and has seen Alabama a couple of other times the last 3 weeks. So there's some interest there. The tight ends coach at Arkansas just left to take the OC job over at South Carolina. So I definitely think that there's at least a shot with Luke Haas, somebody that Alabama has recruited for a long time. Took an official visit back in the summer. So those are some potential flip targets. I don't necessarily see any of these defensive linemen flipping. We've talked about them before. Peter Woods, I think he's very solid with his commitment to Clemson, which is for Alabama, I'm sure they're really upset by that because they were hoping, that he was going to be, that, big dude in their class, a guy that they had recruited for a long time, but they're going to miss out on him. And, there was a lot of talk that he was going to commit to Clemson, but, he would eventually flip to Alabama. That was just, it just never transpired. And I think that he's pretty solid. I think Kelby Collins, in my opinion, is pretty solid with his commitment to Florida, but we'll, we're going to continue to monitor Kelby over the course of the next week, see if anything were to change. But we're kind of getting down to the nitty gritty. I mean, this is the final week until National Signing Day. They're currently sitting at 25 commitments. I think there's a chance that they're going to end up with, it's probably going to be anywhere between 29 and 31-ish commitments in this class. It just kind of depends on how it all shakes up. But, there's some big targets. There's some big names that are still out there that we just mentioned. Joseph Hastings and I released a stock report on BamaInsider.com. It kind of breaks down kind of where things are with each one of these guys. If they're trending to Alabama, if they're trending away from Alabama, are these guys that we're going to be watching, really closely over the course of the next, week or two, or I'm about to say next week or two, over the next week. So it's going to be a fun ride. And, you just never know what may happen or how it's going to all unfold. And that's why we try to stay on top of it every single hour of the day.
All right, guys, don't forget, now's the time to join BamaInsider.com, $10 for an entire year. Next week, this time, we'll be talking about guys that signed their letters and have committed to the Crimson Tide. So that's kind of where we are right now. Make sure you check it out. $10 for an entire year, $1 for 4 months, and should be pretty interesting to see how it plays out. Alabama right now with the number one class with a week to go. All right, Bone, anything else before we close up shop on a Wednesday?
That's it. I think everyone should stay glued to BamaInsider.com this weekend. Should be some recruiting news. There should be plenty of recruiting news over there, so I'd stay tuned and definitely subscribe if you haven't done it already. Go on there, $10 for an entire year subscription, and I think most people who join are pretty happy they did. So go on there, get all of our great recruiting content, but also excellent team coverage. Bowl practice starts this week, so you know that Clint Lamb and Jimmy Stein will be all over it, and obviously Joseph Hastings and I will be all over the recruiting news over the course of the next couple weeks. And that's my kids shrieking in the background.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, yeah. Well, that's normally a sign that it's time to go. Right. So for Andrew Bone, Chris Daltrey, and the guy that puts it all together, Kyle Henderson, I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and make sure you also hit the bell so you know when we're live. And we will talk to you again next Wednesday, National Signing Day. The early signing period is going to be interesting, but you can get all the information you need at BamaInsider.com. Thanks for watching, guys. Roll Tide.